Hello and welcome to A Cup of Tea with Dr. Zee, where we share everyday stories with you, everyday women. Are you ready to hear heart-to-heart key issues that we all face, no matter where we are in the world? So grab your cup of tea and let's welcome your host, author, international speaker, reinvention strategist, and woman that's full of faith in God and mankind, Dr. Zena Arinzi.
Hello, people. Hello and welcome. Another episode of A Cup of Tea with me, Dr. Z. You are incredibly welcome wherever you are around the world. I'm in the UK and it's Friday night, the last Friday in November. We made it. Wow, the last Friday in November. And I don't know, you could be somewhere else, a different time zone. You could be, maybe you're in New York. Maybe you're in Paris. Maybe you're in New Zealand. Maybe you're in Papua New Guinea. Maybe you're in Ghana, Nigeria. Maybe you're in Senegal. Maybe you're in Australia. Maybe you're in Taiwan, Thailand. Let me stop now because I'm not that great at geography. But you are incredibly welcome. Now, if you're new on the show, let me give you a little bit of background why we do this. Now, this is a passion project of mine, and it's really about spotlighting amazing, incredible, everyday women just like me and just like you who are doing incredible things, extraordinary things around the world. So for all you know, I could be coming somewhere near you. And it's also a way to not just give people a voice, but for you at home, maybe you're on the bus, on the train, you're putting the children to bed, or you're on your way to work, depending on what time zone you are. And you're thinking, oh, I can't do this. But it's so easy for people like Dr. Z. You know, she's amazing. Yeah, I am amazing. I'm not going to take that away from me. But I'm just an everyday woman, just like you. I have the same challenges, the same 24 hours that we have. Sometimes I'm happy like this, and sometimes I'm sad, just like everyone else. And obviously, we've got the whole world going on around us. Politics, wars, global warming, climate change, all sorts of things. We've got gender-based violence, which if you're following, you would know that we're 16 days, started on the 25th of November, 16 days of activism, UN, against gender-based violence, so women and girls. And here in the UK, I think it's 3 in every minute get killed or murdered or maimed here in the UK. And the stats are different all over the world. And so you might be listening and you're thinking, well, I've got so much coming at me. You have no idea, Zena, my life, my world. I'm somewhere in a remote part of the world, or I'm somewhere in a very top part of the world, and no one really knows what I'm going through. I have to wear a mask. I want to say that I've got you, boo. I want to say that, this show is for you to hear another person's story. Sometimes it could be a story that's sad. Sometimes it could be a story that is motivational, but it's something that will really help you. Get your notes, get your cup of tea, get your biscuits. I won't tell anyone. And if you don't like tea, maybe you're drinking wine or whiskey. I'm not going to tell anyone. Whatever it is, just relax. But if you are driving, please, just have your earpods on, just one, and have your hands on the steering wheel. Now, today's show, episode 34. Can you imagine? Episode 34. We started on the 8th of December, 2023. And on the 8th of December, on the 6th of December, next week will be a year since I started. And if those of you that can count, you're going to say, well, 34, next week's going to be 35. How come it's not going to be 52? Start having OCD. No, not really. Had a bit of loss in the family earlier on in the year and had a few things. So we had to take a little bit of a break. But other than that, we've been consistent every Friday live, except for one pre-recorded show. So I'm quite proud of myself. And this is my testament to being an everyday woman doing extraordinary things. This has been an amazing platform for me because I've been able to speak to so many different women that I would never really meet in real life all over the world. So far, we've gone to almost every single continent and counting. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about today, episode 34. We've got a phenomenal, wonderful guest today. And you're going to say, Zena, you say this every day. And if wherever you're watching from, please do put in your chat, whether you're on LinkedIn, you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Instagram, just put in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know which part of the world you're in. But in the meantime, I want to talk a little bit about my next guest. She's a special guest, and you're going to say, I say this every week. Every single guest is special, but this particular guest is really, really special. And that's not to say that those of you in the past haven't been really, really special. Now, my guest, her name is Gracey. Well, I mean, I call her pretty, but that's a different story. But her name is Gracey, and she's a multidisciplinary, talented woman. She really is. She's a lawyer. She's a music executive, a global music executive. She's an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. She's a keynote speaker. And that's just a little bit. And I'm just saying it off by heart. So I'm going to read a little bit. So she's a proud African music ambassador and advocate, promoting music from the motherland across many platforms. She's also an entertainment journalist. And if you follow the Mobos, you would have seen her a couple of times covering that. You would have seen her at the Oscars, at the Emmys. I think the Emmys is the music one, at the Emmys. And she was backstage. She's going to be laughing at me right now, say, oh God, this woman, old women. But anyway, she presents Afrobeats, a weekly broadcast on West Side Radio. And she writes as an African music columnist for the F Word magazine and Tirade World. She also creates Afrobeat playlists on Apple Music, Spotify, and Audio Mac, including the viral New Music Friday, which is uploaded weekly. If you want to know more about Afrobeats, this is the person you need to know about. Her legal background she continues to champion talent from the continent as a publicist, a project manager, a consultant via her global firm May, a talent representative, and so many other things. If I keep talking about Gracey, we're going to be here until next year. But I just want to say that she is incredibly talented, and I'm incredibly honored to have her on the show. So without further ado, I'm going to be, I can see people in the chat already. I'm going to get there in a minute. I'm going to bring her in the green room. I can see her laughing, saying, all these things that this lady is saying. Am I talking about her? Am I talking about someone else? Let's bring her in. Yeah. Great.
Happy Friday.
Friday, darling. Happy Friday. I'm just going to have a quick look. Oh, we got Fikile from South Africa. Oh, lovely to see you, Fikile. Thank you for joining us. Right. Now, do you want a cup of tea?
Yes, please.
All right. I did Earl Grey. Do you like Earl Grey?
Yeah, we can go with that as long as you've got some Splendor.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you like me. Yeah, sugar. Yeah, I've got some Splendor. I'd actually put some inside. So just put your cup up. Let me just pour some. I've just done a brew. Right. Just pull it towards the left, towards the left, towards the left, towards the left.
Yeah.
Or the right. Don't know which side yet. Right. Ooh, hope it's not too hot. Pour some for myself. All right, got lipstick all over my cup already. Oh, fantastic. Right. I just wanted you to relax a little bit, because I'm really going to fire you with all sorts of questions.
I'm ready and excited. Thank you so much for having me.
No. It's the honor is all mine. Share in the comments where you're, yes, fantastic. Right. So I called today's show And the Beat Goes On. Now I'm showing my age. When I was maybe about 5 years ago, when I was 30. In the 80s, there was this song called And the Beat Goes On by just laughing by I think the Whispers. I think it was by And the Beat Goes On. And so I just had it in my mind. I thought, yes, that's going to be the title of today's show. So we're going to talk about music, but we're also going to talk about things that make you tick. And I know that our audience will be really kind of curious to figure out, okay, so you're a lawyer and you're a music executive and you're a project manager and you've got all these amazing things. And so I'm going to touch on all that because everyone always feels that if I'm in one area, I can't move on to something else. So let's start with you wear so many hats. How does that, how do you do it? Let's start with that. How do you do it?
With a lot of God's grace, lack of sleep, and lots of partnerships. I'm a big champion of collaboration. And I'm blessed to say that with pretty much everything I do, I have a partner. So let's start with May, which is my label, music label services agency. We offer marketing, PR, project management, project activation, digital amplification. Basically, if you have a music product that you'd like to release, we can lead on campaigns with that and walk you through the full process. And currently, we are a team of 11. We have 6 staff in Lagos and Abuja in Nigeria, and 5 in London in the UK. So being able to work with a team has really meant that we've been able to represent amazing artists, including Bob Marley, who's obviously a generational act. We ran a 9-month campaign for his last project, which dropped last year, called Africa Unite. It means that we're able to work with major labels like Island Records, etc. AWOL as well. Outside of running the music label services agency, as you mentioned, I'm also a journalist, and I host Afrobeats, which is a weekly broadcast specialized for African music. And I do that with my co-host and good friend Sugar Spice. She's an amazing DJ. So again, there's partnership there. With regards to me writing, so I'm an African music columnist for F Word and Tirade magazine. And I have an assistant who helps me scribe, even though I conduct the interviews myself. And then I go in and just add a bit of Gracey May touch, just to make sure that, you know, the lamba, the vibe, and the slang and everything else is accurate. And also, you know, when you have a half an hour conversation with someone, you have to truncate it into 3 or 4 pages for a legible interview. There are parts that you want to remove, there are parts that you want to add. So just making sure that, you know, the sentiment of the interviews come through. I still make sure that I've got a heavy hand in that. And then I do, you know, a bunch of other things, including consulting, which is just me. But again, because I'm able to share the rest of the workload with the different teams I'm in, it means that the items that require just me, I've got capacity to do so.
I really like that, you know, and that brings me to my next question in terms of collaboration, because from everything you've said so far, you have really shown the importance and the power and the beauty and the value in collaboration. So my next question would be, in terms of collaboration, how do you do this in such a way to ensure that everyone's pulling their weight? You know, so to ensure, because, you know, I know that you are incredibly talented. I know that most of the things that you do with other people, you can do yourself. I know that. Don't tell anyone how I know. I'm not going to tell you how I know, but I know that you're incredible. So how do you, you know, to ensure that you've got the right person on the team, or the right person you're collaborating with, so that, you know, like, you know, you pull on her strengths or his strengths and they pull on yours?
Yeah, so with the agency specifically, when I was doing, I think, my 2nd or 3rd round of recruitment, I interviewed 35 people by myself initially, and then whittled it down to the shortlist that I got the team to then support with. So we all interviewed them together. And I think being able to have a voice within African music has meant that quite a few doors have been open to me, all glory to God. And so when it comes to a lot of these opportunities, I'm expecting that whoever's approaching me to work has done their background research, but my own due diligence will also mean that I'm going to do some background research too, and making sure that with everything, I kind of strive for excellence, and I strive for culture and community. I strive for empowerment. And all of that is done through due diligence. So, yeah, I think having a legal background means that, you know, doing a bit of background research isn't too strenuous. And I mean, if I speak about Bolon, which is the community of media professionals in African music that I launched 4 years ago, we're a community of about 100 people now, with roughly 600 people on a waiting list.
Wow.
And we've kept the numbers quite small because we want to make sure that the caliber of people entering the community is of a certain standard. We're also making sure that we're doing the appropriate checks to make sure that they're coming to the community to add and not just to subtract. And again, I run Bolon with 2 amazing partners, DJ JD, Vibe Master JD, based out in Boston, and Eva, who's based out in Cameroon. And it means that we're able to cover, you know, the US, the UK, and Africa with that partnership. And again, they're both very respected in their fields, so it makes the job a lot easier.
I like that. So from what you're saying, you've done a lot of due diligence, and you continue to do diligence. And when people want to work with you, you're expecting that they will do their own due diligence as well. So like meets like. And just to take you back, did you say that you set up Bolan?
Yes, yeah. So
You just said that quietly. It's like when they say that men slide into your DMs. You just slid that into the
slid that in
conversation.
there,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, for me, coming up in African music, I didn't feel like there were a lot of doors that were open to me by other people. I felt like I had a few helping hands, but a lot of it I kind of found my way myself. And I think in music and in life, people gatekeep so that they can maintain a certain level of control. And for me, I found it to be detrimental to the culture, detrimental to the community, detrimental to growth, because it meant that certain individuals are centering themselves and their own success at the expense of everybody else. So in the pandemic, I launched a community of media execs in African music called Bolon. The name derives from the oldest string instrument from Africa, which is also called Bolon. We've actually trademarked the name as
Wow.
well. And if you haven't seen the instrument, it kind of looks like a harp, but with like a calabash at the bottom,
Okay.
and some sticks. And yeah, I'm sure you'll take a look afterwards. But
Yes,
it's
I will.
been a community where we really have been encouraging each other with regards to financial opportunities, whether it's sponsorship or actual jobs, with regards to music. So music is the core of what we do. We debate topics relevant to our community, as well as things like the Kendrick Lamar versus Drake versus Universal Spotify conversation that's happening right now,
Yes.
where Drake is suing UMG and Spotify. And again, it's relevant for us because we're thinking about hip hop as a whole, and African rap obviously falls into that. What does it mean if an artist is able to sue their label or a label for defamation and things of that nature? And so it really is a space where iron sharpens iron. We're able to encourage each other, and we're able to grow. And actually, on the 12th, have I said no, on the 17th of December, after having 2 or 3 London link ups where, we get to tete-a-tete in person, we'll be having our first Lagos edition. In the community, we have people from across the continent. So we've got Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, UK, US, Europe. And so
Wow.
a lot of the focus has been on meeting face to face in London. And for the first time this year, we're going to be doing a Nigerian edition. So really excited to see how that pans out, because there's a rapport you build via text that can't be matched when you meet in person. So it'll be great to see how that goes down.
Hello. All right. No, for a second I thought, well, we lost you. You know what I like about what just listening to you, Gracey, is that you've really expatiated how important music is. For the regular person, we're just thinking about music, it's something that you dance to, something that's a trending, obviously social media, a trending sound to make your whatever it is you're posting go viral, or something, you want to do a 70s night or an 80s night. We just think about it just, very myopically. By listening to you, you've really expanded it. You've talked about the legal part behind it. You've talked about, obviously, artists, and obviously we know that in the creative space, artists, whether it's in music, whether it's in acting, don't get paid enough for what they do, and they always have to kind of try to protect their copyright and their gift and everything. So listening to you, I can see that you are really in the right place. And so I'm going to ask you this question, because it really leads to, it comes from that. As a lawyer, and you've already given us some indication already, but I just want to ask you, and you're already smiling, as a lawyer, how do you navigate the intersection between law, creativity, and publicity in the work that you do? And you've already talked about a little bit about the trends, you've talked about what's happening with Spotify and Drake and all that. And I just want to know a bit more about that. I'm sure our listeners would want to understand that.
Yeah, so I can quickly recap what's happening with Drake, and then I can bring it back to how I'm able to bring all of these different experiences I've had into the work that I do now. So Drake has put forward a petition. So he's not actually, subpoenaed or actually filed a case yet. It's a petition just to let people know that, hey, it's coming. And it's against Universal and Spotify. He is arguing that they illegally boosted the streams and shares and sales of Kendrick's song "Not Like Us," which in that song defames him and says that he's, you know, a sexual abuser. And so actually it's a two-part case, one for defamation and one for like illegal usage, let's call it that. Now, within music, you have marketing in general, right? You can run advertising, you can use influencer marketing, etc. But in this case, he's saying that Universal and Spotify basically rigged it so that the songs had bots and stream farming. So stream farming is where you have multiple devices that just have the song on loop, which artificially boosts the streams of a song, which makes it seem more popular. And, you know, the human brain is super fickle. If I see a video that's on 10 views and one that's on 10,000 views, I'm more likely to go to the one that's on 10,000 views because I want to see what the hype is about. And so he's alleging, in this case, that they artificially altered the vanity metrics, which then encouraged, you know, more people to stream that song at the expense of him. And so I think as a lawyer who works in music, as a music exec, and I've left law now, 9 years ago, which is aging me. A couple of the ways that it benefits the work that I do is, one, I'm able to draft and review contracts with my clients without much interference. 1, 2, I'm able to review my clients' contracts and advise them on what's best. 3, when we are actually fulfilling deliverables. So as an example, I've just come back from 2 months on tour across North America with an artist called Oxlade. I am one of my many hats.
We like Oxlade. Sorry, we like him.
But yeah, one of my many hats is I'm a talent manager and I'm on his management team. I'm specifically his personal publicist, but I do many other things within the team as well. And we did 30 shows across 58 days. A total of 7 stops in Canada and 23 shows in America. And actually, I was featured on a podcast in Toronto. And I was saying that, you know, my love for music didn't start from music business. It started from music. I'm a classically trained pianist from the age of 11. I played piano and studied piano and read music, dedicated for 5 years and did all the grades, etc. As a child of God and as a child that was brought up in a very Christian household. I've been part of, you know, the worship team and music ministry leadership and everything else from a super young age. I think I was the youth choir deputy director at like age 14. And because, as you know, Dr. Zee, we were in a mega church of like 5,000 people between the 2 services. So when we were doing ministrations, it was like a production. So I've got production experience that, you know, other people may not have with regards to lighting and sound and stacking vocals and movement. And on top of that, given that I went to performing arts school as a child and, you know, kind of pivoted into sports as a teenager, but still had that as my background, it means that I'm coming to these conversations as a creative who was knowledgeable about the business. And actually on one of the stops, we were in Cleveland, and I had no idea that
Cleveland in Ohio.
Right. Yeah. And I had no idea that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was in Cleveland. But as soon as I Googled things to do in the area, and that was the first thing, I was like, bye guys, we got 2 hours before sound check, I'm out of here. And I literally cried in the museum because I was faced with like the jacket that Michael Jackson wore, the red jacket in Thriller. I was next to the suit, the white suit he wore in Smooth Criminal. There was artifacts from Tina Turner. There were artifacts from Whitney Houston, all people that I would have loved to have met, people that if I close my eyes and think about cleaning the house on a Saturday morning, it was a soundtrack to my childhood. And to be faced with those artifacts and elements was just overwhelming. They had a whole exhibition as well around hip hop, given that last year, I think, was 50 years of since hip hop was created. And I think having those kind of moments remind me that as much as I'm in the music business and I'm at the forefront and I'm a leader and all the other amazing things you said at the very beginning, thank you for the introduction. At the heart of it, I love music. And it's even weird to I can be in an Uber and the radio's not on. I'm the person to be like, hey, can we play some music? So yeah, I think that's what helps keep me grounded when everything is, you know, going at 100 miles per hour. And that's how I'm able to bring in law, creativity, and music all together.
What I like about this, the way you've answered this question, Gracey, is that you were focused on, you knew where you were going, so you took us on a journey, which was fantastic. And I didn't want that journey to stop, just following that. I feel a bit like Gray and Norton at the moment, following you on the journey, and then you still came back and answered the question. So that's, also shows how focused you are on the task at hand. And I thank you so much for, I love music. I love music, but listening to you, you're even opening up my eyes to all the intricacies about music. And I'm going to ask you this question because I know, as a woman, as a Black woman as well, the positive thing really is the fact that the space that you operate in is, predominantly Afrobeats and predominantly Black music. But I'm imagining that as a woman, as in other things, there are not as many. There are not many Gracies in your field. So I want to ask you, how do you navigate that? And, has there been a situation where people are thinking, so what do you know? And then you come out and you tell them, well, I'm classically trained. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think intersectionality is one of the words we used earlier.
Yeah.
And aside from being usually the only Black person in the room when I'm speaking to, the purse string holders at these major labels, when I'm specifically in Black spaces, I'm usually the only woman, as you mentioned, or the only woman with authority. And then on top of that, sometimes I'm the youngest person in the room as well. And then if you add on top the fact that I'm born and bred in London, as much as my heritage is Nigerian and identify as Nigerian, sometimes I'm even in Nigerian rooms where I'm not Nigerian enough. And so being other is something that I'm definitely specialized in. It's always great to me. For instance, we were in Indiana and a gentleman came and greeted all of the men around the table and didn't greet me. I don't know who or what he presumed I was. And then he asked a question and everyone around the table was like, oh, you have to ask Gracey. And I'm the one person he didn't greet. And so it was a very awkward moment for him. And that is just an example of, I don't even want to call it a microaggression. It's just, we still live in, or I still work, I should say, in a very patriarchal industry, where for women to succeed, they have to wear a cloak of, I want to call it, I don't even want to call it aggression. They just, a lot of the women that have succeeded before me have either had to mirror male characteristics. And I'm very particular about staying super girly. I'm very particular about staying super soft, but still being like assertive, still having authority, and still having, what's the word I'm looking for? Autonomy over how I look and how I sound. I never want it to be that the industry has changed me to become this rock hard butch person. And again, there's nothing wrong if that's your authentic organic self, but I know that it's not for me. And so I think my driving force has always been amplifying art from Africa. And I think it's just one of the many crosses I have to bear to get the music mainstream. Outside of being, a talent manager, and being a project manager and owning an agency and being a publicist and a journalist, I think I mentioned earlier that I'm a consultant. And so at the moment, I'm a voting member of the Grammys, which is obviously the most prestigious music body in the world. The Brits, which is the equivalent in the UK, the Mobos, which is
I wanted to say Grammys, and I said Emmys during the intro. I knew
they both end in MMY, so I get it. I get it. Yeah. So the Grammys, the Brits, the Mobos, which is I guess the Brits but for Black music in the UK, as well as the BET Awards, which again is super prestigious. And I'm a member of Forbes Black, while working with some other bodies as a consultant or as a member. And with the Grammys specifically, last year, through some of the amazing work that I've been able to do with the Academy, I was able to help 150 African music execs join the Academy, which has been the largest influx in history. One, and then two, after two failed proposals, I contributed I was one of 10 people that wrote the proposal that allowed us to get the very first award specific for African music, which is called the Best
Yes.
African Music Performance.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, and that was announced last summer, with our first winner this year in February technically, with Tyler. And the nominations have come out again last week, with the next lot of winners to be crowned this coming February. And in an instance like that, around the table, actually, we were pretty split, even 5v5 in terms of male and female. But I definitely was I was the youngest around that table. I was the only Brit around that table. I was the only Nigerian, there was another Nigerian, Tunde, but I was the only Nigerian female at that table. And so I was able to come with not just experience, but nuance with regards to some of the information. So just a bit of a backstory. For any category that is created at the Grammys, members of the Academy have to submit a proposal. That proposal goes through screening and then goes to the trustees before it's approved. Usually, once you have submitted a proposal that isn't approved, you have to wait 2 years before you can resubmit for that same category. In this instance, we had two proposals that weren't approved before this one eventually was. And by having the experience and knowledge and everything else that I brought to the table, it meant that, some of the metrics that Americans look at that would help them decide whether this would be a worthy category or not, the stuff that I was able to provide. So as an example, they consider a healthy category as something that will have 100 submissions or more. Due to the fact that I do a weekly playlist called New Music Friday across Spotify and Apple Music, I was able to let them know that not only do we have 100 songs a year, we have like 100 releases a week. When they were looking at, total lifetime streams on platforms like Apple and Spotify, they were comparing it to American artists, saying, okay, well, it's not that many, without having the context that Apple and Spotify only joins the continent, or was only available on the continent for the very first time 6 years ago. To date, it's still not available in all the countries. According to World Bank, only 40% of Africans have access to data, and that doesn't mean full-time internet. It just means has access to, and so they're not likely to stream on these types of platforms that are data heavy. If I use Nigeria as an example, there is still no official Apple retailer in the whole of Nigeria. Any iPhone you see, any lightning cable you see has been brought in by a person from abroad. There isn't an official shop. So if there is no official iPhone seller, how do you want Apple Music to be adopted? Because it by default is associated with an iPhone. And so all of this sort of conversations is what I was having with the trustees and guys around the table, which helped them see and know that, they can look at platforms like Audiomack, like Boomplay, which is where a lot of people on the continent consume their music, Umdundo as an example. But yeah, that is how I'm able to kind of fight the trope of being the young Black female in this room, by just coming with knowledge, experience, understanding, and being able to articulate it in a way that's digestible, so people, even if they have misconceptions, are able to kind of wipe them away quite quickly, because they very quickly find out that I know what I'm talking about.
I really, listening to, I'm making a mental note that after this show, I'm going to book some time to learn more about this, because I like knowledge. I like to know everything about everything, and I want to be able to go to, I go to lots of events and, networking events and all that, and I talk about lots of things, but this is something that people won't talk about because they won't know a lot. So I want to be the one to talk about, do you know this? So I'm going to talk to you and take your brain and put on my head, but I absolutely love what you've just said. And I like how you've been able, so although people might think, okay, you're a woman, you're the youngest, I know you're very tiny, because I know you personally, so you're tiny, so they'll be thinking,
hey, 5'3" is not that short.
I didn't say you were short, I just said you were tiny. And so I can imagine, people coming into the room and not speaking to you, for the reasons you've already talked about, patriarchy and everything else. But I also know, because music, I don't know how it is, I don't know about the other race, it's probably the same, but I know Black music is very sexualized. Not the music itself, but, when they see women, they'll think, okay, you're going to be one of the dancers, and all that. And so,
or a groupie.
your groupie or something, you know, and that hasn't changed even now. And we're not going to talk about what's going on because that's not for this show, you know, and all that, and all the different allegations and stuff like that. But how have you been able? Because I'm imagining that, you know, there will be occasions where people would think that they could, you know, suggest or try to make approaches to you that are inappropriate because you're a woman in this space. How have you been able to deal with that? And I know that's a very awkward question, but I think it's a question
to be honest, it's a great question. It's something that I try to speak to my mentees about as well, and I'm quite vocal about the fact that I don't know any woman that slept their way to the top. None. And am I flattered that people want to approach me or flirt with me? Meh. Men kind of do it, and women kind of do it with anything that moves. So no. I try and see past it. A lot of times people are trying to hook you with one thing so that they can get something else in exchange. So they want a free service, or they want a collaboration with the artist that you're speaking to or working with. Like there's always some kind of intention behind it. It's really because you're a cute girl, which I am. So yeah, I think one of the things. Thank you so much.
Keela just said I should call you petite. That sounds better, so I'm going to call you petite.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Pretty things come in petite packages, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think the short answer is it happens pretty much on a daily, if not every other day basis, whether it's in the DMs or in person. And it's, again, just one of the hazards of working in any industry. I think, though, if you worked in an office and you were a cute secretary, it could happen. If you worked in an architecture firm or a law firm, it could happen. I think it's the nature of being a woman at the workplace. And so any kind of principles that you would adopt in any other industry is what you would adopt here. Obviously, music and entertainment comes with its informalities. But I think one of the ways that has helped me kind of maintains my posture and my stance is outside of my faith, just my reputation, right? The industry is everything is about relationship and reputation. And if you get the reputation out there that, you know, Gracey is this type of way, or if you soil a relationship because you end up doing something and then you're not able to recover like a amicable working relationship, the benefits just never outweigh the cost. So yeah, I think without even trying to take a moral high ground, if anyone's in entertainment and they're considering muddying the waters, I would just encourage you that it's never worth it. Not with any of the other female colleagues I've seen that have gone down that path, or any other stories I've heard. Yeah, and one of the things that I try to do just to touch grass is a lot of my best friends and my closest circles are not in music. They're not anywhere near entertainment. The most they do is sing in the shower or sing in the congregation at church. Yeah. And so I think by having my innermost circles kind of outside of the bubble, it means that I'm also able to take my head above water and breathe and realize that all that glitters isn't gold, and flattery can only go so far, you know.
Yes, keep you grounded. I mean, that's really a good way to, you know, to put it. I was just listening to what you were saying. I could imagine, you know, yes, that, and you've touched on it because obviously the creative space is more informal. You know, maybe in the office, if people are approached or there's inappropriate behavior, there's, you know, HR and there's policies and things that you can, you know, report and all that and whistleblowing. But I guess in the music industry, and I'm just guessing this from, I mean, I have no stats, you know, but I'm just, you know, guessing in the creative space, music, art, you know, acting, the lines are a little bit more blurred. But the good thing is that the uproar is bigger, so that's why we had things like the Me Too, you know, when
Harvey Weinstein, exactly, yeah. You know, I would also say that it really depends as well, right? Because when we think about music, there is corporate music spaces. Like I work in music business as well as music creation. So if you're working for any one of the three majors, which is Universal, Sony, or Warner, they are institutions, right? These guys have been around for decades. And they do have HR departments, and you do work in an office, and it is a 9 to 5 where once you shut your laptop, the day is done unless you choose to go to a networking event or an activation that you've planned or whatever. I work on the other side of the spectrum where I primarily focus on delivering music label services to artists that aren't signed to a major. So I give them all the services that they would get under a major record label without having that contract. We're in a time now where labels aren't really investing in artist development, and they're not really signing artists long term. It's very few artists that and they're legacy artists, to be fair, that are getting these 360 deals that make sense. Everybody else is kind of getting a contract for a song or a contract for a project. And so when they're in between these contracts, or even while they're in these contracts, if the major label or the label that they've signed with or the team that they signed with don't necessarily have the African music speciality or expertise, that's when I come in. So that's one side of things. And then I also work with independent artists that have no label backing. Maybe they have an investor, or maybe they don't. And again, I provide music label services to them. And so it's in this sector that it's a bit more informal, because there isn't a HR department, or there isn't a physical office that you attend every day. And so, yeah, just wanted to make that delineation, because there are definitely some aspects of music business that are super corporate and that do offer that kind of support if you're in those spaces.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that clarification. I think that's very helpful, especially I know that people that are listening now, and those that will listen on the replay, because it's also streamed on YouTube and people can watch it, whenever they want. And it eventually gets uploaded onto Spotify and they can listen to the audio. But I think this is going to be an eye opener for so many people, because most people are just like me, a consumer. You sing in the bath, you dance at parties, you listen to the trending sound, but they won't understand that there's so much more. In fact, what goes on behind music is actually much more than what we see. So by the time we're listening to, as a consumer, there are so many steps and layers that that have occurred. And you said something about also representing independent artists. So I just want to ask you, how are you able? I know there's a process, and there's no way you're going to be able to use this whole show to talk about it. But I was just thinking, I've got this lovely song, it's Afrobeat, and how do I get chosen? Because I'm sure there'll be someone. I don't have, that's not me, but I'm sure there'll be someone listening thinking, oh God, I know, I've seen Gracey, I've seen this interview, they might approach me. How do they know, what do they do?
Yeah, so I can take you through the project activation process in all of 90 seconds. So once you've actually recorded your song and it's been mixed and mastered, you have a producer and you have a beat, or you've bought one and you've got the licensing for it. Normally you would pitch yourself to a distributor. This could be United Masters, it could be Platoon, it could be Able. There are over 300 that basically service all 500 DSPs. I know we often focus on Apple Music and Spotify and Tidal, but you have Pandora in the US, and Boomplay and Audiomack on the continent, Undundo on the east of the continent, Ngami in Asia, etc.
Wow.
Now, if you aren't able to get a distributor, and just to clarify, the distributor's role is just to service your music to these platforms. They usually offer some kind of deal where it's 90-10, so you retain 90% of the streaming revenue and they take 10% as their service fee. There usually shouldn't be a fee attached. They may offer you some kind of marketing or PR budget if they really believe in the song and you've got the back end numbers and data to prove that you are a brand or artist worth kind of investing in. In those instances, you might take 70, they might take 30, they might give you 100K. And once you're able to make that money back, or once they're able to make their money back from that 30%, then the splits will then go back to the normal 90-10. If you're not in a position to do that, you can use what we call DIY tools like Ditto, TuneCore, and DistroKid, which is where you have the ability to actually upload your song, set the release date, add the artwork, add the lyrics, and basically self-publish, if you will.
Do people do that?
Often. Most people.
Do they get success?
And it happens to a varied degree of success. I would say anyone that's at an entry level with regards to music does that. I think you have to have had the numbers for a distribution company to believe in you, or you have to have a significant deal, or you have to have significant potential. But if at the very barest minimum, you can just upload your music to platforms like SoundCloud, monetize it, and generate revenue that way. So once the music creation of it is done and it's been uploaded, that's usually when I come in, even though me and my team can support with the first half, because again, I'm an A&R as well, which is artist and repertoire. That specifically looks at artist development, helping artists pick the right beats, producers, songwriters, songs, etc. That's an element of what I do.
I can just lean and listen to this all day.
I'll speed up though. So at this point, it's usually when I step in. So I have me and the team. We have a checklist, and so it will say things like, we need the artwork, we need the song, the clean edit, the acapella, the instrumental as a DJ pack. We need the WAV version and the MP3 version. There are a whole other list of versions. Usually you should have about 18 versions so that you can optimize radio play, DJ play, etc. Yeah. So it's going to be the master version, the clean version, the instrumental, and the acapella as a basic. As I mentioned, as MP3 and WAV. You can also have it as TIFF, which is another audio format. And then for each of those, usually you would then suggest having an 8-bar or a 16-bar at the start, because that encourages DJs to be able to mix songs if they've got that space. And there's a few other versions, but yes, the DJ pack, the lyrics, the label copy. So the label copy is a document that basically says when the song was recorded, who the engineers were, the location, and basically it has all the back end data, who actually vocals on the track, who actually writes on the track. It's all on what we call a label copy. And all of this should be in your press kit, along with your press release and your EPK. So the difference between the two is your press release is about the product. So that could be the single, the EP, the album, the merchandise, the show. Whereas the press kit itself, the EPK, electronic press kit, is about the artist.
Yeah.
And so this is like condensed LinkedIn or a CV, which says everything from your biography to your achievements, accolades, and awards. It should have your discography, so every release you've had, including features. It should have your videography as well, any music videos you released. It should also have a summary page about your community, so how many followers you have, as well as your total streams. Then any other like media clippings or noteworthy items. So maybe you won an award, or maybe you've been featured on Rolling Stone, or maybe you sang at Prince Charles's coronation. And then you'll have a contact page so that people know how to contact you. And that is the press kit. And so my work with my team is to put all of that together. And then what we do is we'll do a quick analysis to say, okay, what work have you done in the past? Who was your target audience? What are the objectives? What the success looked like? We then build the scope and figure out, okay, based on the fact that you want to target people that like African music in the diaspora between the ages of, 18 to 24. These are the places where they live. And then we basically service their music to those platforms. So I've developed what we call the 5 Ps, and it's a 360 super robust way to champion and campaign your music. So in all of 30 seconds, it's press, promo, publications, playlisting, and placement. So press is TV, radio, and podcast. That's rotation and interviews. Promotion looks like digital amplification, social media ads, and influencer marketing. Publications is newspapers, blogs, and magazines. Playlisting is editorial playlisting. So editorial just means DSP playlisting. So that's Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Tidal, Pandora. And then placement looks at appearances, events, and any brand opportunities. And so we facilitate all 5 of those things at May.
Well, I love this, because I can see, you don't just live, you breathe, you exude, you've got the business of music coming out from every orifice in your body, from your pores, and you're explaining it, you're clarifying, you're describing the processes very effortlessly. You're not looking in, because just audience, wherever you are, whether you're watching now or you're watching the replay, this is not scripted in any shape or form. It's not scripted. There are no questions that I've just asked them from my head. She had no idea what I was going to ask her. And so, this has been very, very helpful, very, very valuable. I like to learn things. So I'm learning. It's like, I'm thinking I can just turn everyone off and I can just listen to this myself. Sorry, audience. No, but not really. So we're going to be wrapping up soon. And I just want to ask you, just listening to you, Gracey, you have obviously mentored, influenced, coached so many people on this journey, especially this musical journey. What advice, and I know you probably had this question in so many different versions, in every interview, but what advice would you give to young women aspiring to excel in a multidisciplinary career like yourself? So it could be music, could be other things, but things where they could be doctors, lawyers, nurses, cleaners, whatever it is, but they have so many other talents and they want to really go in. What advice would you give them? 3 tips, because I can see you do things in 6 or 3s.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start with one of my favorite sayings by Zig Ziglar, which is, you don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started to be great. One of the things that I find is people, we like to have methodology, we like to have processes, we like to have definitions and titles. And so for that reason, we are quick to streamline really, really early. And actually, you can do everything. I mean, my first job, I worked in a salon. After that, I was, in fact, before the salon, I was babysitting from like the age of 10. I mean, I don't know if that's legal now, but I was making the money then. I was babysitting. I actually launched my own hair company called Coco and Pearl, where I was doing white hair and black hair. Yeah.
I forgot about that. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I launched that at 16 when I was doing people's hair in school. After getting my first job at a salon at 14. At 18, I launched my first or my second business, my first registered business, which was called the May Company. And I ran that for 9 years, where I was doing event management, wedding planning, and the likes. I did over 200 weddings, I think, over the 9 years. And yeah, I think if I had put down any of those balls, I think I would be a completely different person today. Being able to explore every one of those avenues meant that I was able to say, okay, this is for me, this is not for me. I think when you try to shut down those opportunities too early, or you try to get a niche too early, or you try to specialize too early, it kind of takes away the breadth. One of the things I remember hearing in a talk many, many moons ago was what they call the T model. So I'll just do a capital T like this. Now, some people want to have the breadth and other people want to have the depth. And when it comes to building teams, I prefer to work with people that do have the depth, right? I want to have someone who is specialized in, I don't know, music distribution and music marketing. And I want those experts in the room, but you can't become an expert until you have that breadth of experience. And so in everything that I've said, management has kind of been the core theme across. If I didn't work in IT as a project manager, if I didn't do law, where I was doing some kind of, trial bundling and management of caseloads, if I didn't run the wedding company where I was having to be a source of calm and cool on a very important but very hectic day, I don't think I'd have the skill base for the work that I'm doing now. I don't think I'd be able to juggle all the hats, right?
Yes.
And I without that breadth, I wouldn't have been able to create that depth.
Yeah.
So the first tip would be, you don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started to be great. The second thing is to gain as much experience as you can from as many sources as you can. And then the third thing would be just be consistent. I think one of the things that has helped me stand out is, even if I've started a journey that hasn't picked up in the first month or the first 6 months, I've kept treading that course. And, they always say that, tomorrow is a result of today. I think when people think about African music, not just in the UK and not just in Nigeria, but across the world, I'm honored to say that I've been able to push the needle and the conversation forward with the efforts I've made. And, April will make 10 years that I've been officially working in music business, not including all the music experience beforehand. So if I had given up after year 1 or year 2 saying, okay, there's no women in the industry trying to help me, or there's no major radio show, because there was a point where I was just like, if I'm not signed by BBC tomorrow, I'm not. Yeah, if I'd given up then, I definitely would have curtailed my destiny. And I think a lot of the conversations and stuff I'm able to have today has come from the experience that I've gained at all of those grassroots levels and all of those mid levels that have prepared me for this senior level. I think there's a prayer that my mum used to say to us, which was, don't let my charisma take me where my character can't sustain me.
Yes.
And all of those elements and all of those versions of Gracey have been able to build the character that I've got today, which by God's grace has meant that I've been able to sustain and even improve and evolve the positions I'm in now.
I put that Zig Ziglar's quote: you don't need to be great to get started, but you need to get started to be great. So for those
my
of you,
favorite saying,
copy it, put it down, get started, stop looking for perfection. Stop looking for perfection. I dare say, I don't want to kind of take off my crown yet because I'm known as the reinvention queen. But but I feel like just taking it and putting it on your head, you know. But it's been an absolute joy, an absolute pleasure, you know, interviewing you, and I don't want to stop. So I'm going to just try, you know, like in church when we have a visiting pastor and they always say we want to just suck out everything. So I just want to try and suck out the last part. So in reflection, if you could share just one lesson from, and you've talked about, you know, you don't have to be, you know, great to get started and all, and that's fantastic. But one last lesson from your incredible journey, and you still got so many other journeys and firsts ahead of you. What would that be? You know, what's next for you, Gracey? What's next for you?
Yeah, so I guess that's two halves of the same. I would say that I've already spoken about the beauty of partnership and the strength in collaboration. The last thing I would say that's like a practical tip is just time blocking. I think when you have so many hats to wear, it can be very easy to get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that you need to do. When you can kind of see your potential and you can see how much more you have to offer the world and the industry and even yourself, it can be almost like you're drowning with the amount of things that you have to keep up on. And maybe it's the project manager in me, but just time blocking. If it's this morning, I'm only going to work on this, or for this hour, I'm dedicating it to this, or this evening, I'm actually going to rest and I'm turning off my phone. I think time blocking is so important when it comes to achieving your dreams, because even if you achieve one thing every day, by the end of the month you've achieved 30 things. One of the things that I definitely will also encourage everyone to do is just to create that balance. As I mentioned, my closest friends are not in the industry. There was a season in my life where I was walking like an hour or two a day as a prayer walk, or just to kind of meditate, or just to even have silence, because I'm in a position where I'm always at the front. So people are always relying on me for an answer. And so, yeah, just taking time for yourself. And in terms of what's next, the music label services agency I've built has been very much music, and 2025 and 2026 looks like entertainment. So if you follow me or any of the business platforms on socials, you'll see that we have recently signed comedians, actresses, and people that aren't specifically music, but they are entertainment talent. And so we are still going to be delivering the 5 Ps because they are relevant to any type of entertainer, but we aren't limiting ourselves to just music anymore. I'm still an African music champion, but I'm really now owning African arts. And so that doesn't just sound like music, it's visual art, it's everything in between. So yeah, that's what's next.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gracey. This has been absolutely amazing. I've learned so much. Most of the time when I'm interviewing someone, I would know a lot about what I'm going to talk about, but this is an area I knew nothing about. I can safely say that even if no one else enjoyed it, and I know everyone has enjoyed it, and those that watch it on the review, I have taken so much from it. And I was thinking, oh God, why am I the one interviewing? I'm going to be making notes. So thank you so much. We're going to be watching you very clear. Do you want to share how people can reach you, or they just look for you on your socials?
So I always like to spell, because you can spell Gracey a few ways and May a few too. So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok _Gracey May. That's GRACEYMAE. If you are into getting into music business, then Twitter is where you want to find me. I do fortnightly threads on different elements of music business. So whether it's music distribution or splits and shares, so that's when you're dividing the revenue and ownership of music, whether it's about building your artist team, what to look for in an artist manager, I break that down and have done consistently over the last 18 months. So there's definitely a thread there for you. If you want to see more of the showbiz elements or what I'm up to in real time, then you can see that on Snapchat. If you want to kind of get an overview of who I've worked with or what I'm working on, you can see that on Instagram. And if you want to get a peep into who Gracey is outside of music, then you can see that on TikTok, where we've got a few vlogs, holiday content as well. Of course, there's going to be work elements there too. So recapping, my first time at the Grammys last year, etc. yeah, every platform has a different shade or side of me. So feel free to follow me on all platforms.
All right. So you've heard it from the best here. _ Gracey May. I've put it in the captions, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, wherever it is, and even the new social media platforms that will come out very soon. This is probably, I know Gracey, she's very consistent, so it will always be _ Gracey May. So thank you so much, Gracey May. It's been amazing, phenomenal, and I love this interview. I don't even want to stop, but I have to stop because obviously we need to time block. So thank you so much for your time, and just best believe I will bring you back. I'm ready.
Back. Thank you so much for having me. I would love to be back. And congratulations on 1 year. It's an amazing feat.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to A Cup of Tea with Dr. Zee, your reinvention queen. We hope you've been motivated and inspired to go out there and conquer any obstacles and issues you may face. You can find Dr. Zena on all social platforms. Until next time, remember,